Right, so in the last few days, we saw the signing of Pedro Neto, and like any signing in the modern day, I think that most of us believe that there may well now be a domino effect. Pedro Neto coming in could mean that one of Sterling or Mudryk could be leaving. Speaking of leaving, what on earth is going on with Conor Gallagher to Atletico Madrid? Speaking of what on earth is going on with one of our academy graduates, Trevoh Chalobah, we are no closer to finding out whether he will stay, whether he will leave, and if so, where he will go. And also, while we're speaking of the fact that we've got Conor Gallagher and Trevoh Chalobah, who are now being told they will be training with the kids, let's speak about a former wonder kid in Joao Felix, who may now be making a return to Stamford Bridge. And not only just that, there are so many more talking points that we can cover in today's video, so strap yourself in because we're about to do that right now. But people, before we get into all that, welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. If you are new around here, at the end of the video, if you like the content and you want to see more from myself, please hit the subscribe button. I know I told you guys I'm going to get the whole backdrop in this bedroom sorted, but all I've got for the minute is the new lighting. I'm going to get the shelves put up. You can sort of see them just about in the background. Got some stuff to decorate them with. It's going to look really nice. But for the time being, bear with me. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel. Smash the like on the video right now. Let's get into it. Right, so you can see the graphic on screen now of what I believe is Chelsea's best potential starting 11 next season. Now, there are ways that we could experiment with this 11, and I'm sure that Enzo Maresca will, but so far, from what we've seen in pre-season, I feel like this is actually the system that probably fits best, and that is due to Enzo Maresca's extensive experience in playing this exact system. And despite there being a couple of big names missing, from a practical standpoint, this is currently what I'm leaning towards for this season. But the good news is the depth we have is absolutely ridiculous, because despite Chelsea finishing 6th last season, there are so many players that aren't even in that starting 11 that could definitely get moves to Champions League level clubs. Now, you all know my thoughts on Trevoh Chalobah and Conor Gallagher, and the fact that I believe they are hugely valuable assets to this squad. I actually believe that for this moment in time, with the little bit of shakiness we've seen in defence, maybe Trevoh Chalobah is the one out of the two of those that are more important. But despite the fact that they're now looking like there could be some road bumps in the whole Conor Gallagher move, I'm not going to include either of them in this squad because I still do strongly believe that they will be moved on. But looking at that starting 11, we do have some big name players that will be able to be rotated into that 11, most notably, obviously, the likes of Enzo Fernandez. You've also got Malo Gusto, Wesley Fofana, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, Madueke, Carney Chukwuemeka, Ugo Chukwu, who has impressed in pre-season. You got Sterling, Dew, Mudryk, and many more. Now, at the moment, Chelsea have 42, yes, you didn't hear me wrong, 42 players that are officially registered as part of our first team. So, it is an absolute given that we are going to need to do somewhat of a cull of these players, and we are going to speak about that. So let me read a list now of players who I believe, whether it's loan deals or permanent deals, should and could be leaving this summer. We got Kepa Arrizabalaga, Bettinelli, Bergstrom, Chilwell, Humphreys, Tino Anjorin, Casadei, Moreira, Angelo, Broha, Lukaku, David Datro Fofana, and David Washington. Now, for me, barring Chile, maybe, I would say none of these are that controversial. I think that most of these are expected to leave on loans or permanent deals, and that's 13 players that I've just named there, which would take us down to 29 first team squad members, and we all know that we're trying to get to around that 25 mark. And when you speak about the likes of Gallagher, Petrovic, Trevoh Chalobah, who have all been heavily linked with moves away, that would bring that number down even further. So right now, let's use this opportunity as a chance to speak about the movements that are happening right now as of today, Tuesday, the 13th of August. First off, let's speak about Conor Gallagher, because what on earth is going on with Conor Gallagher at the moment? He flew to Spain. He had his medical at Atletico Madrid. He was even on the pitch at one point. He spends 5 nights in a Madrid hotel, and now he's flying back to England as per request of Chelsea, as Atletico Madrid are stalling on the deal. Now, I am going to try and simplify this as best possible for you guys. Atletico's priority was Julian Alvarez, who they have now brought in, and despite the plan being to bring in both Alvarez and Conor Gallagher, the Conor Gallagher part of that plan was dependent on Atletico making a sale of one of their players. Now, that sale was never going to be a problem, because the sale was going to be their young striker Samu, who was coming to Chelsea. However, that deal for this second right now appears to have fallen through, and I really don't actually know the ins and outs of it, because I've heard loads of different things. But one of the things I've heard is that Chelsea wanted the image rights or the name rights or some shit like that to the player. I don't know. These sort of things baffle me and do my head in. But either way, now the deal significantly hinders on Atletico being able to move on another one of their players for a transfer fee. And as luck would have it, there is an Atletico player that they can move on for a transfer fee that would be willing to join Chelsea Football Club, and also would be willing to take a pay cut when it comes to his wages so that he can fit in with our wage infrastructure, and that man is Joao Felix. And at a glance, this is a deal that I really, really like. I was hugely impressed by Joao Felix during his loan spell at Chelsea Football Club last time round. Obviously, a lot of people talk about a horror debut that he had. It wasn't a horror debut. He got sent off against Fulham, but he was pretty good. You know, I actually thought he was really good and really creative in that match. And I also thought that every time I saw Joao Felix in a Chelsea shirt, he did exactly what I wanted him to do. He was progressive. He always looked to be creative, moved the ball forward. He showed some silky skills. Maybe you could argue that he could have chipped in with 1 or 2 more goals, but I really, really liked what I saw from Joao Felix. And after that loan spell, I was very much hoping that we would make him a permanent signing. But Mauricio Pochettino deemed him surplus to requirements, because obviously we had the likes of world beaters like Mykhailo Mudryk in the squad, so we didn't need Joao Felix at that time. And maybe Atletico Madrid wanted a bit too much money for him. Maybe Joao Felix wanted a bit too much money paid to him in terms of weekly wages. But a lot of stuff changes in football on a day-to-day basis, and in the space of the time since Joao Felix was here on loan and since he's gone back to Atletico and then to Barca on loan, a lot has now changed. And now it could make financial sense to bring Joao Felix back to the bridge. However, there's one big question here, and it is a big, big question, despite the fact that I do love the player and I would welcome him back with open arms. And that question is, do we even need Joao Felix? Now, if the question's, do I want Felix over Samu Amara Dion? The answer is yes, I do want Felix over him. A very, very clear yes. But if you said to me right now, do you want to spend 40 million, let's call it, on Joao Felix, or potentially put that money towards a Victor Osimhen deal that could potentially come off, because we know that they are linked with Lukaku and whatnot, I would probably say that I would rather put the money towards Victor Osimhen. Which could sound strange for you, because I've just said how much and how highly I rated Joao Felix. But let's think about it like this, right? Look at the players that we have in the positions that Joao Felix could potentially occupy. And then you look at a list that includes Palmer, Madueke, Nkunku, Kane Chukwuemeka, by the way, who we're all sort of half forgetting about here, Pedro Neto, who we've just signed, Sterling, Mudryk, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. The list probably goes on. That's just off the top of my head. So there are lots of options there. And despite me feeling that Joao Felix is head and shoulders above quite a couple of those names that I've just mentioned, I definitely do feel like we've got depth in that position. Whereas at number 9, we've got Nicholas Jackson and we've got Mark Yu, who has impressed in pre-season. But after that, it kind of looks like slim pickings at the minute. And despite Nicholas Jackson looking decent and really, really good at a lot of times in his first Premier League season, we can't deny the fact that those mistakes that he showed, the lack of clinicalness that he showed in some areas, and more notably at the start of last season, could rear its head again this season. So then we have to look at the alternatives and what we've got there. And Mark Yu, as I say, is a pressing monster. His tenacity has impressed me. His general attitude has really impressed me. But at the same time, as always seeing the glass as half full rather than half empty and being an optimistic Chelsea fan, I do have to be a realistic Chelsea fan. And the bottom line with Mark Yu is he's never scored a Premier League goal. He's never made a Premier League appearance. So maybe we need some more assurancy. Is that a word? Assurancy? When it comes to that number 9 position. And yes, you could say to me that, hold on, Joao Felix is a second striker by trade and can definitely play in the number 9. He did play in the number 9 at times for Chelsea in the loan spell that I just said I was impressed by. And also, you got Christopher Nkunku there. And you would be right. You would be right. But I do think that there may well be an element of square pegs in round holes. Despite the fact that they can play there and they can do a job there, are they best there when it comes to Joao Felix and Christopher Nkunku? And my gut reaction, my gut instinct would be no, they're not best there. They're best further a little bit back because of the creativity, because of the playmaking ability. There's a reason Haaland plays at number 9 and not in midfield or centre attacking midfield or out on the wing, because he is just a natural, instinctive, in the box, goal scorer, finisher. And he's not a creator, a facilitator as such. And when you put someone who probably excels more in those creative and facilitating attributes in the number 9, you are going to lose that side of their game. And that's why I kind of liked the Samu deal. I kind of liked the John Duran deal. Despite they weren't big names, I did look at them profile-wise and think, okay, you are at least out and out number 9s. And I do think we need an option of that. And despite the fact we got Nicholas Jackson there, and we've seen a season of him where he has played out and out number 9, and as I say, did impress me. He did start off as a left winger, and he was a left winger up until the last 10 games or so, where he hit a fire-hot form at Villarreal, and that is what convinced Clearlake to go out and sign him. So to summarise, there are 2 transfer merry-go-rounds going on here. First, I've already touched on. It's the Atletico one. They wanted Alvarez and Gallagher, but the Gallagher move depended on a player sale. They thought that sale would be Samu, but actually now it's looking like Joao Felix. If Chelsea don't get the Joao Felix deal done, then maybe someone else will come in for him. Maybe someone else will come in for Samu, and then maybe Conor Gallagher will move the other way. But if that doesn't happen, then Conor Gallagher will probably come back to Cobham. Apparently, we're hearing that he'll be training with the under-21s. I'll tell you now, that will ruffle so many feathers amongst the Chelsea fan base, and what will probably end up happening is we'll end up then selling him to a direct Premier League rival like a Villa or like a Spurs right towards the end of the transfer deadline day sort of time, towards the end of the transfer window, and it'll probably be at a lower price than we would have got initially had we have just got our ducks in order and got the move done. The most likely scenario to come out of all of this, I would say, is that we do end up getting hold of Joao Felix. Conor Gallagher ends up going the other way, and I am a little bit conflicted on this one. I know, and you lot know from watching the channel, I'm going to massively miss Conor Gallagher. I really love the boy. However, I do really rate Joao Felix, but how important he is to the balance of this squad, I'm not too sure. Now, the second merry-go-round is with our old friends, Napoli. They want Lukaku, but they don't want to put up the money. In fact, they don't want to put up anywhere near the amount of money that Chelsea feel that Romelu Lukaku is worth. Not only that, we kind of want Victor Osimhen, but Napoli are trying to play hardball with us, even though they want one of our players. So I really don't know how anyone manages to do any sort of business with this club. However, the fact they want Lukaku and potentially some other Chelsea players, which we'll touch on in a sec, could put us in a little bit of a position of strength. One thing I do know is I spoke about the fact that Joao Felix is willing to take a little bit of a wage cut to fit in with our wage infrastructure. Victor Osimhen is not willing to take that wage cut at all, and at the moment he's on about 250 grand a week at Napoli, so it wouldn't make him our highest earner. But when we're talking about trying to get that wage bill down, would that necessarily be a price that we're willing to pay on the wages? If it was down to me and it's not coming out of my pocket and I know that he could come in and guarantee us goals, I'd probably just pay it either way. But Napoli want in excess of £100 million for Victor Osimhen, but reports are that they are also interested in the likes of Kepa Arrizabalaga and Cesar Casadei, as well as Romelu Lukaku. So if we could get... Look, in modern day football, there's not going to be swap deals anymore. There's not going to be, X amount and this player on top, because it's all about FFP, it's all about meeting, the books and the bookkeeping side of things and the finances. Clearly, I'm not the man to speak to about that. I'm not the most educated on that. But basically, what it'll end up being is all separate transfers. They need it to go through in that way because then it's easier to deal with FFP, I believe. So, let's say, for example, they were to pay 10 to 15 million for Kepa. Let's say they would pay 25 to 30 million for Lukaku and 10 million for Casadei, right? Then, let's say their asking price was 110 million euros or something like that for Victor Osimhen. Ultimately, what that would mean is if we could get good prices and good deals in, we'd end up bringing Osimhen in for something closer to like 70 million if you just knock off the prices that they've paid for our players. And then, when you look at it, for around £70 million-ish, I'd probably say in today's market, that's not bad value for money, is it? And if you said to me, would I rather spend 40 on Joao Felix or 70 on Osimhen, I think I would rather go 70 on Osimhen, knowing what he brings, knowing he is an out-and-out striker, and knowing that when we are bedding this team together, when we're trying to adapt to an Enzo Maresca system, it can be so helpful to just have a man up there that does guarantee you goals, because it means when that adaptation period is happening and the team don't really understand how to play together, maybe the whole intricate passing along the front line, patterns of play, build-up play, maybe all of that can just be quashed in certain games by having a man who can just pop up and score a header out of nowhere, make a chance out of nothing and score somewhere out of nowhere, and it's not such a systematic goal per se. Haaland can do it, there's other players in the league that can do it, and Osimhen could be one that could potentially do it. So if you ask me the ideal scenario for me right now, it would be that we put all of our eggs in the Napoli love triangle basket. We bring in Osimhen, which I believe would give this squad the balance that it needs. And despite the fact that he would be on big wages, we've got to remember a man that would be on even bigger wages in Romelu Lukaku would then be going the other way. Now, Felix is great. He really is. But, I don't know. Do many of you actually believe that we need Joao Felix more than we need Victor Osimhen? Do you? I don't know. Tell me. Let me know in the comment section. But if you ask me the most likely situation, I think that it would be that we get the move for Joao Felix that allows Gallagher to go the other way. The media spend the remainder of the transfer window saying that Chelsea are still interested in Victor Osimhen. It could go all the way to deadline day. And then ultimately, for one reason or another, it never even materialises. But if that sounds like a downer, here is the good news, because let's just look back at this starting 11 and whether or not we get Osimhen in, if we can field this team or something similar, bearing in mind, as I said, there are such names as Enzo Fernandez, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, Madueke, Fofana, Sterling, way more. Should Enzo Maresca be able to get this backline working? And do you know what? Even in that Inter Milan match, I'm not saying there weren't one or two individual errors and mistakes and whatnot, but it did look more sturdy and it did look better back at Stamford Bridge. And I always mention that would be a big factor in here. If you can get the backline working, I'm telling you, look at that lineup, ladies and gentlemen. If it clicks, That lineup is competing for Champions League football, and it's definitely competing for silverware this season. So get excited. Don't be down in the dumps. We could make no more signings and we're good. But if we could make a couple of signings, I would just go all out for Osimhen, and that would potentially be it. But obviously, we do need to work over the next few days on getting 1 or 2 or 10 or 11 out the door. Me and the big dog, Josh Aveste, we will be in the studio on Friday, and we will be giving our Chelsea season predictions as well as previewing the Manchester City match. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Also, if you want to buy the new Chelsea kit, I do have the link to the Mega Store that is our affiliate link in the description to this video. If you click on that, it takes you there. It knows you've come through us. It gets you 10% discount on the sale, and it helps support the channel. So if you're planning on buying the new Chelsea kit, which by the way, if I was you, collector's item wise, I would buy it before they go and get the shirt sponsor, because I know all my mates that had it without the shirt sponsor, the old Infinite Athlete, as nice as it looked, it's a little bit of a collector's item in years to come when you can go back and say, oh yeah, started this season without a shirt sponsor, which it kind of looks like we're going to again. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Smash the like on the video, hit subscribe if you're not already. I will see you all in the next one.